what was once called a conspiracy theory, but is now known as truth. Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. The descendant organizations that built and owned the Titanic denied it broke in half while sinking, until the wreck was found in 2 pieces. I have no idea why. None of the original engineers or proprietors were still around, but as recent as the late 1970s and early 80s, survivors who said it broke were dismissed as suffering from delusions brought on by hyperthermia. Despite no direct involvement, the contemporary lineage of White Star and Harland Andamp, Wolf were adamant there was absolutely no way it could have broke the way it did. Then Ballard found it, and the denial never spoke of it again. Story 2. Hillsborough disaster in England, 1989. Bad crowd management at a football match by the police. Overcrowding led to a crush with 97 dead and 766 injured. The police covered up their responsibility and blamed the fans until a second report in 2016 held the police responsible. Story 3. The fact that Japanese citizens had disappeared because North Korea had kidnapped them. One of the victims was 13 when she was kidnapped. Her dad devoted the rest of his life to reunite with his daughter, but he passed away a few years ago without ever getting the chance to see her again. His passing was pretty big news at the time. The kidnappings are still an ongoing issue since some of the victims are believed to be alive in North Korea. Story 4. Tuskegee Syphilis Study. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a study on the natural progression of untreated syphilis in rural African American men in Alabama under the guise of free health care, without their informed consent. The men were not told they had syphilis, nor were they treated for it even after penicillin became the standard treatment in 1947. Story 5. MK Ultra. Basically, they were doing a bunch of experiments using various devices, drugs, and psychological tactics to try to determine if mind control is real in any way. I believe the results were mixed, to say the least. Like, one story I know of is one test subject of MK Ultra merely got his beliefs torn down by an interrogator and went on to become the Unabomber. Story 6. I'm from Argentina, and there were rumors about a Chinese military base in the province. After some time, it turned out to be true. There is a Chinese base here in Argentina. Don't ask me what they are doing here. Edit. I thought it was a rumor. It seems that it was news at the moment. Still, at the moment, everyone around me thought that it was a rumor too. Also, the Chinese base is in Nukun if you want to search it. Story 7. Britney Spears was being held in an illegal and immoral conservatorship by her father, who essentially sold her off to a corporation in exchange for some of his debts. She was being drugged to keep her submissive, her children held against her and forced to work incredibly long hours with no say and no time off. Slavery. While her entire family stole and then lived off the money she earned. Since her social media was controlled by this conservator institution, she sent hidden messages to her fans begging for help. At some point, she posted about taking some time off since her father was having health problems, but that wasn't her. It was posted by her conservatorship team to hide the fact she was being kept for months in solitary confinement against her will. Story 8. I used to tell people they were releasing updates to slow our phones down on purpose so that we'd have to go out and buy new ones. They told me I was paranoid, and that my phone was slowing down because it was just getting old. That's not how processors work. Eventually, they officially got caught and tried to spin it off as we're doing it to save your battery life. Now it's just accepted, and you're supposed to throw out your phone and buy a new one every 3 years indefinitely. Yay, capitalism. Story 9. Planned obsolescence. Our products are designed to break or wear out before it's necessary, with the best engineering and production techniques, in order to create more sales. The Phoebus Cartel was an international organization which controlled light bulb sales worldwide, and made sure they wouldn't last more than like 2,000 HRs. The engineers actually had more difficulty accomplishing this than they had creating a better light bulb. The Centennial light has allegedly been burning for 121 years. Oh, guess what? It's not just light bulbs, and it hasn't stopped. Story 10. I'm not sure if this is really a conspiracy theory, but more of confirming what had always been known, but the treatment and the number of deaths within the Mother and Baby Homes institution in Ireland. For those unaware, it was common for unmarried pregnant women to be sent to mother and baby homes, often by their own family, to deliver their child, and remain in the home for a period of time, determined by the nuns, working for free to reimburse the church for service rendered, aka having their child taken from them, never knowing what happens to them, and often having their child put up for adoption without their consent or knowledge. This all came to light when an unmarked massive grave containing the remains of 800 children was made public. Story 11. Coming in late, but I used to work with a guy who is a hardcore conspiracy theorist. This was in the mid to 90s, and he would talk to anyone who would listen about all the theories and stories he had or had heard. One of them was that the US was controlling the weather. I didn't fully understand, or maybe never actually got the whole story from him, but it just seemed so outlandish, I dismissed. Years later, 2010s, I met a guy who worked as a meteorologist, or did some kind weather forecasting for the Air Force, and he said, "Oh yeah, we used to disperse potassium iodide in clouds to make it rain." Like you'd say, "Of course I had eggs for breakfast," almost as if it was common knowledge. It's called cloud seeding. Story 12. Brighamite sect of Mormonism. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with the little d, is full of them if you grew up. Some examples include Joseph Smith was a polygamist with children. Joseph Smith sacrificed animals. Joseph Smith was a con man before starting a religion. He never really stopped. Joseph Smith stole the temple ceremonies from Freemasons. Joseph Smith had a gun when he was assassinated. Joseph Smith used a poop brown stone to translate the Book of Mormon. Brigham Young had his own band of mobster outlaws. Brigham Young taught that Adam and God were the same person. Brigham taught that God married Mary and impregnated her by having sex. Jesus was a polygamist, and the only way to atone for some sins was to be killed. Brigham Young told the saints to kill over 100 men, women, and children crossing through the territory by dressing up like Indians, and more recently, the Mormon Church hoards more tithing wealth than a dragon instead of giving to the poor. All of it was, and still is, a conspiracy in the church. But all of it is demonstrably true. Finding out everyone I had ever loved and trusted in the church was either lying or gullible came as a real mindfuck. For me, it was extremely difficult to learn to trust them, or anyone again. But after years of therapy, I'm finally in a fairly good state. Story 13. It used to be an open secret that the media lies to the public. Little did we realize, the system is built on lies, and lies are the most profitable. Important things happen across the world, but I'm supposed to know or care about Taylor Swift's relationship status. There are two massive wars going on right now, that the US has indirect involvement in, and we are still in the privileged humdrum of discussing Ye's thoughts about people. I just don't care. He's not a world. Keep in mind, when you read the news, what is not being presented, and the biases the sources have. I get my news by cross-referencing multiple sources. And yeah, I've seen a few hoaxes and just straight-up lies be started or gain traction on Reddit, just like the sycophants at Fox News or CNN. It's honestly disgusting, the double standards of news events and how they are reported on this website. But everywhere you go, the bias is this intense. It almost makes you want to never hear another opinion from someone on the internet, because every opinion is verified by some source of facts, backed by indignant retribution. Story 14. The government was stealing dead bodies to do radioactive testing. During Prohibition, the government poisoned alcohol to keep people from drinking. A stroke rendered President Woodrow Wilson incapable of governing, and his wife surreptitiously stepped in, but pretended he was. The CIA was testing LSD and other hallucinogenic drugs on Americans in a top-secret experiment on behavior modification. The Dalai Lama is a CIA agent. The FBI was spying on former Beatle John Lennon. With the advances in technology, the government is using its vast resources to track citizens. Yes, your government spies on you. For decades, Tobacco companies buried evidence that smoking is deadly. The Gulf of Tonkin incident on August 2, 1964, was faked to provoke American support for the Vietnam War. The CIA embeds agents in the media to manipulate the Story 15. It's kind of niche, but in Iraq and Afghanistan we were being made to take anti-malarial drugs. The thing was that different units didn't have to, while others were, and the kind of drug taken was different. We took ours once a week, and we referred to it as Psycho Tuesday because after taking the drug people would become irritable, aggressive, and angry. There would be fistfights over stupid shit, and people would have really weird nightmares. You'd walk through the habitation unit, and people would be talking in their sleep or sleepwalking. We were told this was due to combat fatigue, but it turns out we were part of an experiment. Some units had been issued uniforms treated in a long-term mosquito repellent, while others were given various anti-malarial drugs. The mental disturbances we experienced were a side effect of the experimental anti-malarial we had been given. People suffered hearing loss, liver damage, and long-term mental effects from it. These side effects are similar enough to issues created by PTSD and traumatic brain injury from blast exposure that most affected don't realize their health issues are from an involuntary drug trial. The US government has stopped issuing that malaria drug. TLDR, I was an unwitting human guinea pig in a government drug trial, and it almost made me crazy. I and a lot of others made the connection and dodged taking the pills, or cheeked them and spit them out later, so luckily dodged the long-term effects. Others still suffer though. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.